My name is Alex, and at the time this story took place, I was 19 years old. Freshman year of college. If you've ever lived in a college dorm, you already know, it's a bizarre mix of independence and chaos. You're technically on your own, but also surrounded by 100 other young adults who have no idea how to live on their own either. The walls are paper thin, the hallways echo every sound, and privacy doesn't exist. Still, I adapted. I liked my little dorm room. It wasn't much. A single bed pushed against the wall, a desk always cluttered with textbooks and half-finished coffee, and a corkboard where I pinned class schedules and motivational quotes that were supposed to make 8 a.m. lectures feel survivable. But the peace never lasted. Because right next door to me lived Sarah. Sarah wasn't a villain. Not in the traditional sense. She wasn't cruel or malicious, she was just loud. The kind of loud that doesn't recognize the concept of quiet hours. The kind of loud that takes over a shared space and acts like everyone else simply has to adjust. At first, I brushed it off. After all, it was college. People stayed up late, hung out, played music. I told myself it was normal. I told myself I'd get used to it. But weeks turned into months, and her normal became unbearable. Every night, like clockwork, when the hall was at its quietest and my brain finally started to unclench, it would start. Bass lines pounding through the thin walls. Pop songs and club beats at full blast, the kind you feel in your chest even when you don't want to. It was almost always around 1 or 2 in the morning. Exactly when I needed sleep the most. I tried everything to cope. Earplugs. White noise on my phone. Even sleeping with a pillow shoved over my head. Nothing helped. The vibrations seeped through everything. And every time, I laid there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with exhaustion and anger. Then came the night that changed everything. I had a huge exam the next morning. One of those tests that counts for practically half your grade, the kind professors warn you about on the first day of class. I'd spent the whole evening cramming, running on caffeine and adrenaline, and by midnight I was more than ready to collapse. But of course, Sarah's stereo roared to life like it had been waiting for me to shut my eyes. Something inside me snapped. I told myself, enough. This time, I'm not just going to lie here and take it. So I pulled on a hoodie, marched down the short hall, and knocked on her door. The music was so loud I felt the vibrations through the doorframe. When she opened up, she had that look on her face, messy bun, pajama shorts, one hand holding a red Solo cup like it was permanently attached to her. Before I even spoke, she rolled her eyes. Still, I tried to be polite. Hey, sorry to bother you. I've got a really big exam tomorrow. Could you maybe turn the music down just a little? Just for tonight. Her lips curled into a smirk that made my stomach twist. Sure, she said. For a split second, relief washed over me. I thought she actually meant it. But instead, she reached over to her stereo, twisted the dial, and cranked it even louder. The bass exploded through the hallway, rattling the doorframe between us. She didn't break eye contact. She just stood there, smirking as if to say, "What are you going to do about it?" I froze. My throat closed up. A dozen comebacks ran through my head, but none of them made it past my lips. Instead, I just turned and walked back to my room, cheeks burning, humiliation and anger bubbling in my chest. That night, I didn't sleep a single second. I just laid there in bed, staring at the ceiling, every beat of her stupid playlist driving the rage deeper into my chest. And somewhere in that endless, sleepless night, I made myself a promise. If Sarah wanted to play games, fine. But I was going to make sure she regretted it. After that night, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just about losing sleep anymore. It wasn't even about the exam I nearly bombed because I walked into class half delirious. No, what really gnawed at me was the smirk. That smug look Sarah gave me as she turned the dial and dared me to challenge her. That smirk replayed in my head like a broken record. The next few nights followed the same miserable pattern. I'd crawl into bed, exhausted from lectures and assignments, and then the walls would start to vibrate. Sometimes it was electronic dance music. Sometimes it was old-school rap. Once, for reasons I'll never understand, she blasted a Disney soundtrack at full volume at 2 in the morning. It didn't matter what the genre was. The result was always the same. My body tense. My head pounding. My mind racing with every minute of sleep I lost. I noticed something else too. Whenever anyone else on the floor knocked on her door to complain, she laughed it off. I overheard her more than once, giggling with her friends. "Relax, it's college." That was her catchphrase. Her excuse for everything. As if the word college gave her free rein to ignore the fact that other people had lives, obligations, sanity. I wasn't the only one she annoyed, but I was the one most directly affected. I was the poor soul who shared a wall with her. And that's when I realized something important. Sarah wasn't evil. She wasn't even malicious. She was careless. She thought the world revolved around her sleep schedule, her moods, her music. She was convinced she was untouchable. And that belief, that arrogance, was exactly what I could use against her. The funny thing about Sarah was that she had one weakness. It wasn't obvious at first, but living next to someone means you pick up patterns. You notice things they don't think anyone's paying attention to. And what I noticed about Sarah was this: she hated mornings. I'm not exaggerating. Sarah despised them. While most of us dragged ourselves out of bed for 8 a.m. classes, she stayed cocooned in her room until noon or later. If she had a morning lecture, she skipped it. If she had a morning commitment, she was late. You could hear it in the way she shuffled around at 11 a.m., groaning, slamming her snooze button half a dozen times before she finally emerged like a vampire crawling out of its coffin. And that's when it clicked. She had her nights. But I had the mornings. The plan started small in my head, almost like a joke. I thought, what if I just woke her up once? Gave her a taste of her own medicine? But the longer I stewed, the more appealing it became. Not just once. Not twice. But every single morning at the exact time she hated most. I didn't want to just inconvenience her. I wanted to make her understand what it felt like to be trapped, to have your peace stolen, to feel powerless against someone else's noise. And I knew exactly how to do it. I owned a small Bluetooth speaker. Nothing fancy, just one of those cheap ones students use for study playlists or parties. But the important thing was, it was portable. I could place it anywhere. And the wall we shared? Paper thin. I didn't need a massive sound system. Just the right placement. So, one morning after my exam was done and I had no early obligations, I set my alarm for 6:30 a.m. dead quiet in the dorm. Everyone else still asleep. I rolled out of bed, grabbed my speaker, and set it right up against the wall that separated our rooms. I scrolled through my phone, searching for the most obnoxiously cheerful music I could find. Not rock. Not rap. Nothing with heavy bass. No, I wanted something she couldn't just drown out. Something relentlessly upbeat. I landed on a playlist of bubblegum pop from the early 2000s. Boy bands. Cheesy one-hit wonders. Songs with clapping and la-la choruses that stick in your brain like glue. I grinned. Perfect. At exactly 6:30, I hit play. The opening chords blasted through the speaker, bouncing off the wall, filling both my room and hers with forced sunshine. I sat back on my bed, sipping a coffee I didn't even need yet, and waited. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, her door creaked open. Sarah stumbled out into the hallway like she'd been hit by a truck. Her hair was a tangled mess, her eyes half closed, her face twisted in rage. She glared at me as I stepped out of my room, pretending to stretch like I'd just woken up naturally. "What the hell, Alex?" she croaked, her voice rough from sleep. I forced an innocent smile. "What? It's morning." Her jaw clenched. She muttered something under her breath and slammed her door. But that was just day one. And I wasn't stopping there. The first morning was a test run. I wasn't sure if it would actually work. But the sight of Sarah stumbling into the hallway like a zombie and glaring at me like I'd ruined her life? That was all the confirmation I needed. So I doubled down. The next morning, my alarm went off at 6:30 sharp. I rolled out of bed, grinning before I was even fully awake. I grabbed my Bluetooth speaker, pressed it against the wall, and hit play. This time, it was the cheesiest, most aggressively upbeat track I could find, a boy band classic with harmonized ohs and an endless chorus that repeated until it made your brain melt. I swear, within 30 seconds I heard a groan from the other side of the wall. I stretched out, sipped my coffee, and enjoyed the music. By 6:45, The door next to mine flew open. Sarah stormed out, her hair sticking in every direction, a pillow mark across her cheek. She slammed her fist on my door. I opened it slowly, making sure to look half asleep. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed, her voice still groggy but sharp. I tilted my head as if confused. "What? Just listening to some music. Isn't that what you do at night?" Her eyes narrowed. "It's 6:30 in the morning." I smiled. "Relax. It's college." Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She spun on her heel and stomped back into her room, slamming the door so hard the frame rattled. By day 3, it had turned into a full campaign. Every morning, same time, new song. Bubblegum pop. Cartoon theme songs. One morning I blasted the chicken dance on loop until she practically screamed into her pillow. Another day it was that one song that repeats the word banana 100 times, maddeningly cheerful, impossible to ignore. The dorm was usually dead quiet at that hour, so my music echoed down the hall. I started noticing other students poking their heads out of doors, looking confused. But when they realized it was directed at Sarah, the same Sarah who kept them up at night, most of them just smirked and went back to bed. By the 4th morning, Sarah cracked. She stumbled into the hallway, her eyes bloodshot, and cornered me as I walked out of my room with a travel mug in hand. "Alex," she begged, her voice low and desperate, "please stop. I can't do this anymore. I haven't slept in days." I raised an eyebrow, pretending to think about it. You know, that sounds familiar. Almost like what I've been saying for months." She grimaced. "Okay, fine. I'll turn my music down at night. Just, please stop with the mornings." I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Relax, Sarah. It's college." Her jaw dropped. For once, she had no comeback. The rest of the week was pure bliss. For the first time in months, my nights were quiet. No more pounding bass at 2 a.m. No more smirking when I asked for decency. Sarah never admitted defeat. She never outright said, "You win." But the silence spoke louder than words. And let me tell you, that silence was golden. By the end of that week, I barely recognized my own life. For months, I had lived with this constant dread, the dread of lying down at night, knowing the peace I craved would be shattered by pounding bass. I used to brace myself for it, almost like waiting for a storm. But suddenly, the storm was gone. The first night Sarah kept her music off, I actually lay awake for a while just listening. Listening to the silence. It was strange at first, like my brain didn't know how to handle it. No thumping, no muffled lyrics, no sarcastic laughter through the walls. Just peace. When I finally drifted off, I slept harder than I had in months. And in the morning, I woke up refreshed, not dragging myself to class half dead, but actually ready. It was amazing how much control one person had over my life without me realizing it. And it was even more amazing how fast that control disappeared once I fought back. Now, Sarah never apologized. That wasn't her style. She didn't suddenly become friendly or admit she'd been wrong. She still walked the halls with that same little strut, still acted like the queen of her social circle. But there was a difference. Whenever our eyes met, the smirk was gone. Instead, there was this flicker, a little hesitation, a reminder that I wasn't the pushover she thought I was. And more importantly, the music never came back. Looking back now, I realize this whole thing wasn't really about music. It was about respect. About boundaries. About not letting someone else steamroll over you just because they think they can. I could have kept asking nicely. I could have complained to the RA. I could have just endured it, like so many people do when someone treats them badly. But instead, I fought on her terms. I showed her exactly what it felt like to lose control of your peace. And the irony? The moment she tasted her own medicine, she couldn't handle it. It only took 1 week of mornings to undo months of nights. Justice doesn't always come with apologies or big dramatic confrontations. Sometimes, justice looks like silence. And for me, that silence was sweeter than any revenge speech I could have made. So, what did I learn from all of this? That sometimes, people only understand respect when they're forced to feel what they've dished out. You don't have to be cruel. You don't even have to raise your voice. You just have to find the right lever, the right weakness, and apply it. For Sarah, it was mornings. For me, it was finally sleeping through the night. And let me tell you, silence never sounded so good. If this story gave you chills, or maybe even a laugh, hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen or experienced? We'd love to hear your stories. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more true stories of justice served, one sweet revenge at a time.